Let's step back into the Coliseum and discuss Gladiator 2, the long awaited sequel to Ridley Scott's 2000 masterpiece. Let's keep it spoiler free because it did just come out last weekend, but just give me some quick overall thoughts on the movie, Dave.
Yeah, so Gladiator, all time classic. I mean, one of the best movies out there. Russell Crowe's best performance of anything I've ever watched of him. It's incredible. So you go into this, it's another one of those sequels. It's 20 years after the fact. It's like, okay, I don't know what to expect here. And you learn they dropped $300 million on this budget. Like, so you're like, holy crap, okay, well, this has got to be epic. If they put this much money and time into it, it's going to at least look good. And I will say that it looked very good. Costume design was beautiful. Some of Pedro Pascal's armor and stuff he was wearing looked so clean. The action scenes were pretty fun. The Coliseum scenes were awesome. The ships in the water thing I thought was gonna be better. It was all right, but it wasn't as intense as I thought it was gonna be. But all in all, it was entertaining in that way. So it looked expensive, felt expensive, and I enjoyed it the whole time. But with that being said, it wasn't top quality movie. I don't even know if it's in the eights for me. The writing was very predictable. A lot of the plot points were like we called out a couple of things. Like a scene happened, we like looked at each other and said something like, "Oh, I'll see when this happens," and 5 minutes later it happens. Like, "Yep, all right." so,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of it was predictable. They kind of went against something they said about the plot, which I won't get into that, but it'll become pretty predictable pretty quick too. So just the writing in general and some of the dialogue wasn't great. So
Yeah.
it's a fun popcorn movie, but it wasn't like an epic, really high quality movie I'd
Right.
recommend.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. So let's get into the characters. So Paul Mescal, this is like his biggest role of his career. I haven't really seen him in anything. I looked up his filmography and nothing I've really seen before, but he has the look of an ancient Roman. Like he definitely
Yeah.
looks the part. So I think he did a good job carrying the movie. Denzel was a pretty cool character. Like was used more than I thought he would. Pedro Pascal, pretty awesome. I mean, he was definitely a more fleshed out character than you think. You know, he wasn't one sided the whole time. And then Joseph
Mm-hmm.
Quinn as the Emperor was pretty cool. Like, of course, Eddie from Stranger Things, he's definitely blown up since that. Very over the top, but I mean, I feel like it was fitting for the movie, so I liked his role as well.
Yeah, he did good. I think they should have just had him. I don't think the double emperor thing landed with me. I think it would have been better to focus on one single emperor. It kind of came off a
Yeah,
bit comedic, kind of silly at points where it kind of pulls you out of the intensity of the movie. So I
right.
think that was kind of a mistake there. But yeah, no, Joseph Quinn did good. He showed another part of his range that I haven't seen yet. He's obviously also Johnny Storm coming up in the Fantastic Four, so
That's
we're gonna
right.
see that. He was just in the Quiet Place, so a little bit of a horror kind of deal. So he's he's hitting every single corner of the possible actors range you can do
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So far, he's doing pretty good with it. So Paul Mescal killed it. I really his part of it. I think that's why I really enjoyed this. Was I at least to me every time he was on scene, I was enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said,
Great
he really
speeches.
does look the role. Yeah, some solid speeches that I actually like believed. Even the first battle where he's like hyping up his actual people from his whatever village or town he was from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, he just nailed the role. He can totally play that type of role here.
Yeah,
So that was solid.
I'm sure he's about to blow up more too after that.
Yeah. Well, and I know he's got a couple other big movies coming up that
Okay.
I've heard his name attached to. Denzel was classic Denzel.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I don't know that he needed to be in the movie, honestly. Like
Like,
it's Denzel, so it adds
mm-hmm.
to it, but it wasn't like a massive role, really.
It was kind of like Anthony Hopkins and Thor. You know, like did
A
he
little
need
bit.
to be there? Was he kind of coming for the paycheck? But he still brought his classic, style to the movie.
Well, I told you, he had like 5 scenes, and all of them were like 10 to 30 seconds long. His first 5 scenes, and in every scene, he was in a completely different lavish outfit. So, dude, Denzel is rocking so much stuff
The
in the
budget.
first 5 minutes of this movie. Yeah,
Yeah. And Pedro, what do you think of Pedro? Mando.
he was good. Not the character I expected. But I enjoyed it. I thought he sold the role pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And he's also another member of the Fantastic Four. So how about that?
Yeah.
You kind of touched on the action. So there were some pretty cool scenes in this movie. I think that was definitely the strong point of it. I didn't love how everything kept going back to the Coliseum. I do get their gladiators, but there wasn't a lot outside of the Coliseum. It was like, hey, you know what? Let's settle this in the Coliseum. You know what I mean?
It was a spot. It was,
yeah, right.
I would imagine over 50% of the movie was probably in the Coliseum. But it looked great, and they probably built a pretty amazing set to it. So they said, we're going to use this as much as we possibly can here. There was something else I kind of forgot that I had an issue with, but, I can't really think of it right now, I guess. But, yeah. Again, I think high sevens or so is probably where I would put it, but, yeah.
And then with spoiler free talking about the plot, it was definitely the weaker part of the movie. Predictable, like you said, and just the way one of the characters kind of flips didn't really seem justified. It was like, okay, I'm gonna side with you now, and it's like, was there really a good enough reasoning behind that, or was it just kind of one conversation that changed you? So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was still solid. I would probably put it like low sevens, like maybe 7-1, 7-2. Yeah.
Man. Which is wild. Again, we came in. Again, you don't want to get yourself too hyped up on these types of things, but it looked good. Like the trailers were looking great. It just I think I did start to let my expectations get a little too high. And me and you went to again. Not to brag, but one of the few actual IMAX theaters in the country, in the world. I think there's only like 20 in the country, 16 in the country or something like that.
Right.
So seeing it on the massive screen probably added a little bit to those epic Coliseum gladiator fights.
Right.
And there were solid gladiator fights mixed in between. Like it did what it needed to do in that department for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go check it out. I mean, obviously it's a great theater experience. I would definitely recommend it. Go have some fun, watch some gladiators. Bro.
Yeah, now that I think about it, actually, I think it was like a 9.9, and you should probably go see it 3 or 4 times. And this has nothing to do with any type of draft we've done this year. I just genuinely think you should put $150 into this thing, for your part.
Right? Yeah. Well, I saw on X today, it says Sonic 3 and Mufasa come out the same day. Which one are you going to see first? I'm thinking, go see them both. Don't worry. Shit.
That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. We'll see what we'll see what kind of margin you got to cover by that point.
Right. I know it's gonna come down to the wire with those two. Hopefully one goes close to $1 billion. We'll see. But yeah,
there you go.
Check out our box office update on Instagram and X, and we are getting down to the wire with 1 or 2 movies left for each team. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Why So Sidious, a Nerd Podcast. Joining me today is my co-host David Cochran, and today we are going back to Frank Herbert's world before the Kwisatz Haderach, before the Lisan al-Gaib, episodes 1 and 2 of the latest Max series, Dune Prophecy. But don't forget to check out some of our other episodes. We have our Week in Geek series, dropping weekly, as you know in the title. And our coverage of the Penguin finale, the previous Max series, covered the whole season. And we have a comic book review to get ready for the next Sonyverse movie, Spider-Man: Kraven's Last Hunt. What did you think about that comic, real quick?
You know what? Well, actually, real quick, I'll answer that right after this. But we do got somebody in the chat, Victor Alcantara. Goes, I don't know how I ended up here, but it's good to see people talking about Dune. Victor, I don't know how you ended up here either, but you know what? I'm damn happy you are. If you want to stick around for the whole thing, go for it. Yeah, we'll be here. We're going to be talking Dune Prophecy. Always talking Dune. And we're going to be talking about the Dune novel, actually, coming up here once I finish that. I'll just read that last night. I'm getting there, Lub.
I already forgot what happened.
There you go. We'll revert back to those notes. But yeah, speaking of reading, Kraven's Last Hunt, not what I was expecting. JD helped. He kind of gave me a little hint. He said Spider-Man's not in it as much as you would think. It's not exactly what you're gonna think of. So that helped a lot. I enjoyed it though. 6-issue run, short. It made me interested in the character Kraven as a whole more. It made me kind of look forward to the movie more, even though I'm very hesitant in the fact that it's a Sony thing. So, more than likely it's not going to be good. But yeah, it was a cool little run. So, and it's got this cool kind of dark 80s vibe to it. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's definitely worth the short read. Yeah.
Yeah. And good way to get ready for the movie. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Why So Sidious Pod on Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube. Thank you, Victor. Hit subscribe. Maybe go over to Spotify. Hit follow. Appreciate it. All right, let's get into the episode. We'll start with episode 1, then get into the next one. A quick summary. And of course, this is lightly based on the sisterhood of Dune. We were talking about that before, if this is based off a book or not. But it's not directly adapted like Dune Part 1 and 2 are. But this is part of the Great Schools of Dune series written by Frank's 2 sons. So this is after he passed away.
Oh, seriously?
The Sisterhood of Dune, which it does have some of the same characters as that are in the show.
Like Valia?
Valia and a few more as well.
I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that at all. Had no idea this is based off of previous works.
Yeah, but they're changing it more than the movie was.
Well, that's fine because Frank's sons changed a bunch of his stuff anyway, so you can change the stuff back to more Frank's vision there.
Here we go. So episode 1 sets the stage for the upcoming conflict between the Sisterhood and the Imperial Court on Seleucus Secundus. Valia plots to keep their power and influence by putting one of their own on the throne, Princess Yanez. Desmond Hart, thought dead after an ambush on Arrakis, reveals troubling conspiracies about the noble houses. He exhibits mysterious powers and ultimately takes drastic actions, killing young Pruitt, hinting at his possible ties to secretive supernatural forces. So how about that? This episode starts off with basically the backstory to the entire Dune universe, how all things were started with the humans rose up against the thinking machines, the Atreides led the fights, and after that, all technology was banned. So how'd you like the start to this series?
That was super cool. That immediately grabbed me. Like, again, we've been leading up to this, and the trailers have been coming out, and I've been kind of like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to watch it for sure, but I'm not, like, really anticipating the series. Had no idea it was even being made until we heard about it however long ago that was. But right off the bat, that hooked me because the human versus AI war is something that I've always been super interested in. And speaking of Frank's sons changing stuff, that's one of the aspects they kind of changed from Frank's original vision and description of what happened in that war. So it's super cool to see that, here in the background, how the Harkonnens fled and were, shunned and known as cowards after that. And it was rumored that an Atreides was the one who was the hero of the battle. I don't know. I just loved it. I'm really hoping we get more backstory on that, and we even got a little bit during the wedding later on in this episode when that piece of AI lizard starts escaping and everybody's freaked out about it. The princess is pissed. She's like, once we're married, you do that again, I'll stab you myself. Like, people are pissed. And so I love getting this backstory to that whole conflict, and I really hope that's not it. I really hope they keep peeling back layers of what happened, different aspects of the war itself. But yeah, right off the bat, that was the thing I needed to hear.
Yeah, me too. It was a great start. And it just makes you want to know so much more. I don't know if they could do an entire show on that, but just to keep kind of getting pieces of it during this show would be cool.
Straight up. Yeah.
So let's get into
Victor.
Sorry,
real quick. Victor in the chat says, I learned in this episode that 10,000 years may pass, but electronic music still rocks. Damn right. It's still going strong.
That's funny.
I love the score in this, by the way.
Yeah.
Speaking of music, the score of this whole first 2 episodes, it felt like the movies.
Hans Zimmer
really had that just like the heavy droning type of whatever type of musical instrument makes that. It was solid. It really set the mood for a lot of these scenes.
So let's get into the next flashback that we don't realize is a flashback when we're there. But we meet Valia Harkonnen, one of the main characters. And we find out, of course, the Bene Gesserit are assigned to the Great Houses. But there's this genetic archive to create royal unions. So they're doing more behind the scenes than we know. We're on the homeworld, and the Mother Superior is on her deathbed, and she gets this vision of the Shai Hulud, a reckoning, and they need to put one of theirs on the throne. And this kind of starts a little civil war between the two. Some are against the breeding. They don't want to guide the path. They want to, they want to guide the path. They don't want to lead them to it. Like no more playing God. And of course, this leads to Valia using the voice for maybe the first time. I don't know for
Seemingly?
sure, or maybe
Yeah.
Mother Superior taught her, but no one knows about it to make her kill herself. So this is another, right after the thinking machines, we get this. So I think they started off great. What did you think about this start to the
Yeah.
sisterhood?
Yeah, it was solid. We get that warning of Tiran Arafel. I don't think that's how it's pronounced. That's a note I took, but I'm pretty positive that's not how they pronounced it in the show. But yeah, a holy judgment brought on by a tyrant. And it makes me wonder, again, later on when we get to a certain Desmond and we learn about everything that happened with him, we get the mention of Shai Hulud there, Shai Hulud with Desmond, and I'm thinking and I have no idea, I could be absolutely wrong. This is just throwing it out there. Is this like Shai Hulud's way of trying to stop the Bene Gesserit from implanting the prophecy of Paul and him ending up taking over the Fremen and leading them into holy war and all this stuff? Is this Shai Hulud trying to stop the Bene Gesserit's plan? Is that why Desmond is so untrusting of them later, which we'll get to? But I don't know. I'm super
that makes sense.
Super curious right off the bat what this connection to Shai Hulud is. But yeah, I loved it, and I love the school of the Bene Gesserit. We barely got it here. We get it more in this episode and the later episode. But I love the feel to it. It reminds me of The Witcher. When I forgot the main character, the main witch's name, but that school that they go through in The Witcher season 1 and 2. It reminded me of that, but done a little bit better. Well, Geralt's his love attraction. Purple eyes. God, what's her name?
Oh.
I don't know how, I can't remember. But you know what I'm talking about. The brunette. She goes to that witch's school, though. And God, long-winded way of saying it reminded me of that. But I like the way it's done in this Dune show.
Yeah, it kind of gives me Jedi Archive vibes, too, with going down the middle and you get the books on the bookshelves on the side.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
And there's also a class on breeding, so they're really getting it going there.
Baby.
But let's move on to Seleucus Secundus, and this is where we meet Kieran Atreides, or Kieran, and Princess Yenne's, and we also get her brother Constantine Carino. A lot of names being thrown at you in these first couple episodes, so I try to write them all down to remember them. And we also get Mark Strong as Emperor Yavako Carino. And I do love how when they're having a conversation, the two Bene Gesserit are having their secret conversation at the same time, giving the little hand signs to each other. Every single time they're doing something behind their backs. And of course, they need help on Arrakis. What's new?
Right. Yeah, I found it was funny. We jumped right back into Arrakis, but it just shows how important it is. It's been the center of things for 10,000 years. Yeah, it's hilarious. Not only are they communicating, they're guiding the conversation. And this happens in the next episode, too, with the father of the other house. The Bene Gesserit are straight up all right, tell him you guys need to leave, pull him back. And then she whispers in his ear. He's all right, well, this isn't over yet. And he leaves. They are literally controlling the conversations, just puppet strings over these great houses. Pretty cool way to show how powerful and influential they really are. I mean, they run things. The Bene Gesserit just run things, so...
And the second the Emperor loses his, he's freaking out. If she was around, that would have worked out better, I needed her. So they're very dependent.
A vice, or it's this thing they're hooked on. It's like losing your smartphone right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotta have that to survive.
We get a couple training montages. I don't know if you want to talk about that with Atreides and Yenne's, and then there's another Bene Gesserit training montage. Just they have the shields back then too. Same thing.
Yeah, look good. Fight choreography seem good. So,
yeah. The wedding day. So Florence Pugh Jr. here is the vibes I was getting. But it's kind of crazy how in the future it's normal for a duke to marry a Bene Gesserit or Well, I mean, Duke Leto didn't actually marry her, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
And then the Emperor's daughter is literally like the same thing in the future, but it seems like it's totally fine then. So their plan definitely works out in the future.
Yeah, that was interesting. The kid's a little, I mean, R.I.P. Uh, he's a little brat, but it was solid. You know, again, costume design and everything on the show. It looked good. It looked realistic. I it took me a minute to kind of grasp all the people. Again, you said there's all these names, um, but God, what was the name of the family of the son who died? Do you remember what their
Pruitt?
name was? Their house name? Was it
Pruitt?
Pruitt?
So,
Okay.
yeah, something. Or that's his first name, but
Yeah, no, that was the kid's first name. Anyways, whatever. The wedding was solid. I just love that fact that we get the lizard that runs out of there and just seeing everybody's genuine anger and fear and reacting to this, you know, machine who thinks, this little lizard.
mm-hmm.
And I just, the father just doesn't care at all whatsoever about it. Doesn't think it's a big deal. But man, I didn't see Mark Strong. We'll get into that later. Sorry, I'm rambling right now.
No, that the robot, the AI toy scene was kind of weird. How she's like, "What is that you're hiding over there?" And he's like, "Oh, it's nothing, it's nothing." Then it just pops out and runs around like it. So it does have, it's sentient. It has a mind of its own. It's his little friend, his little toy. So
Yeah,
he
who's
was
making those things? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, right. And where do you get that thing from? But
That's what I'm saying.
and marrying a child, classic in these stories. It's always you have to marry
Yeah.
someone who's 5 years old and wait 10 years.
Very Game of Thrones-esque. She even says, like, well, he's this age. That's great. Now I get to slam people for another 6 or 7 years before I even got to worry about doing anything with this kid. So, yeah, it's how the houses work. The great houses. It's how you stay in power.
And the Emperor's true seer is left by now, right? Because she leaves before the wedding, correct?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even realize she was the Emperor's truth.
Right. True seer.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't realize that until the second episode.
Okay.
I didn't really know what her
Role.
point or where she stood in this part when we see the ending
It's
scene there.
confusing.
But yeah,
But they're trying to
yeah.
find a new recruit, someone who they can use and relies on them, which is interesting because the Sisterhood isn't. I mean, they're being portrayed as the protagonist, but they aren't totally clean in what they're doing, and they are like, like we need. They're talking about like, oh, we brought her in as a child. She's all we know. She'd be good to replace her. Like she won't betray us. She relies on us. So that's interesting point of view.
Yeah. Well, they're smart. They're cunning. They know how to set things up. Obviously, they've been doing it a while, and
They still will be.
yeah, dude. But so we get to that end part. Can we talk about Desmond Hart there and his whole deal with the whatever this power is?
Right. Yeah. So he's a surviving Arrakis warrior, which is kind of crazy. I didn't think we were gonna get that so early in the season, but
Right.
and of course,
Right
Spice still runs everything. And he asked him like, what happened? He said, I prayed not to feel anything. I prayed for death basically, but Shai Hulud granted me life. And the Emperor says, free me of this wedding and I'll believe you, which is like kind of saying, not like totally telling him to kill the child, but kind of saying at the same time. And this is where Mark Strong gets the hologram scene where he sees Desmond on Arrakis. Like all of his soldiers are dead around him. The Thumpers are in the sand, and he's just waiting there to be, sacrificed, which is kind of crazy. Reveals a lot. What do you think about that?
Well, it reminded me of the scene from Dune where Paul Atreides is standing there and the worm rises up out of the sand and they're kind of almost staring each other down. And then we realize Jameis set off a thumper and it turns around and it leaves them alone. But we had that moment where it was like Chosen One kind of image right there with him staring down the mouth of the worm. So we briefly saw that with Desmond there. And obviously he survives this somehow. He says he just reemerged out of the sand. He doesn't know how the hell it happened, but he survived. So there's got to be some meaning there. He's got to have some important role, obviously, going forward with this. But yeah, it reminded me of Paul with that little shot there.
Hmm. And Desmond is against the Bene Gesserit and them secretly
Yeah.
controlling the universe, which is leads into your theory about, the Shai Hulud trying to stop them from planting their prophecy on Arrakis.
Yeah.
And he visits the child in his bedroom and burns him from the inside. But the weird part is this connection with Kasha, the truth seer. The same thing happens to her at the same time. So I don't know exactly because she's not connected to the child. She doesn't know who he is, or I mean, she's never met him before.
Right. Well, and he says, sacrifices must be made to win this war. And right
Right.
when he said that, I was like, oh, he's about to stab this kid. Like, he's about to straight murder this child here. And that's not how I saw that going down. But it almost makes me think like he has to use a vessel to burn somebody else, or he can use somebody almost as like a voodoo doll type situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how in the world he managed to connect the two. I don't know, but that's what it made it sound like. He's sacrificing this kid, A, to get them out of the wedding. Uh, woo, getting getting emotional. It's a tough scene. That poor kid. um, but I don't know. He obviously he talks to Valia later on like he's bragging about it. Like yeah, I took her out. You guys need to be stopped. I see through your veil essentially. Like I see what you've done, what you're hiding. You weren't clean. You're not fit to sit by the side of the emperor here. So it was very intentional and very personal, but I just have no idea how the two are connected.
Yeah, me too. But I'm sure we'll figure it out.
Oh, sorry, real quick. Victor in the chat says ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And by the way, out there, if you guys want some ASMR, comic book pages turning or something like that, hit up JD. He's your man. Get it on TikTok for you. But he says ASMR stands for that. And the doctor said the meridian area was the cause of death. Desmond's power may be something more sensory. So that's interesting thought. And that's something else we get with the Bene Gesserit later when we're talking about the agony and all that, which I'm sure we'll get to. But we get a lot of detailed breakdowns of like how people are fighting the chemistry in their bodies and are like almost taking control of each cell in their body and finding like, so it may have some connection with that where he's straight up getting inside the nerves and frying them on the inside or whatever the case may be. But I'm liking the detail to all this stuff. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what it is.
Right. We also got, before I move on to episode 2, we got a little spice party. So this wasn't really touched on a lot in the movies, but spice is a drug. There's more than just using it for space travel. You can snort it like cocaine off your arm or whatever, like they were doing. So that was kind of crazy to see.
Key. Yeah, that was just a typical kind of
bar.
clubbing scene there going on. Yeah, I thought it was funny they're doing it the exact same way people.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
like, oh, it's just cocaine. It's sand cocaine. Got it. And we see them doing it a lot going into episode 2 as well, which we get a pretty intense scene in episode 2 there. But yeah, you're right. Spices talked, obviously, again, it's got the similarity with Star Wars. Star Wars has spice as well.
You want to rethink your life.
Very valuable. Well, that's death sticks, but yeah, same deal.
I'm sure there's spice in it.
Maybe there's spice in death sticks. There you go. But yeah, it's more often talked about as a drug in Star Wars than the 2 Dune movies we've seen. But yeah, we see Paul hallucinate on it when he inhales it, or it's in the food and he starts tripping. So,
hell yeah,
he didn't know you could snort it,
right? He could have became Lisan Al Gaib a lot faster.
He could have been taking things over so much quicker.
Let's move on to episode 2. So tensions rise in the palace. Valia Harkonnen orders her young acolyte, Lila, to undergo the dangerous ritual of agony to access genetic memories for insight in a potential threat, despite resistance from her sister. And Desmond Hark declares his intent to destroy the sisterhood, positioning himself as the big bad from a certain point of view. So it's Kieran Atreides. So we find out that he is kind of playing both sides. He got the floor plan of the palace, and he's kind of on this secret mission as in the rebellion against the Great Houses.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Didn't see that one coming. So I don't know exactly what their beef is. Besides, maybe they've just been kind of pushed aside for so long because House Carino is just the emperor over and over. Passed down by generation.
Sounds like the classic thing that was happening in the later 10,000 years. What's happening everywhere in real world? It sounds like the richer are getting greedy and
That's
withholding
true.
from the lower houses, and the lower houses are starving and fighting, and the rich are hoarding spice. Yeah, I had no idea though. I know I heard the name Atreides in episode one, but until this moment, I didn't realize. Oh,
Right.
the guy Horace goes, "You're in the presence of the Emperor's swordmaster, direct descendant of the war hero Vorian Atreides." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's who we're dealing with here. All right, well, that's dope." Um, and then that female Bene Gesserit he's talking to in that club ends up being a rat too. So
She's
there's
playing
just a
both
whole bunch
sides.
of rats playing both sides all over the place.
Yeah, and she turns Atreides in as the spy, saying,
Yeah.
look no further than him if you want to find out what's going on. So that was crazy because she was
Mm.
like, "Hey, I saw you with the princess the other night. Like, I know, well,
Yeah.
your feelings." And then she goes off and betrays him after. So,
Freaking gossip girl out here.
right? Really setting fires and walking away.
Yeah.
So he goes and meets his girl Nez, and they do a little practice duel that gets intense because she's obviously upset about what happened. And she faced a rebellion as a child. Someone broke into the palace, took her. Her brother couldn't do anything, but her parents covered it all up. No one knows. And I like the line she said, "We're all just pieces on the board to be played in the pursuit of power and spice." Got to throw
Yeah.
that one in there. And I'm kind of thinking, like, what's he gonna do here? Because yeah, he's for this rebellion and helping out the lower houses, but he has a connection with this princess and knows that she's not a bad person. She's not out there for power and lust. Like, she does have a heart to her, so he is definitely in like a hard place right now.
Yeah. No, she seems, as far as all the characters we've been introduced to, they've all kind of been pretty shady. We find out
Mm-hmm.
something, one thing or another. We're only 2 episodes in. For the most part, other than the fact that she likes to party and,
Hey, who doesn't?
goes out and does her thing, it's not like she doesn't seem very corrupt or evil. She was being very kind to the kid at the start of the whole wedding.
Yeah.
So she seems like a genuinely decent person. And during that scene, it hit me, or is when I was like, okay, so these are two of the main characters. Like Princess Inez is going to be definitely one of the standout main characters of this
Oh, yeah.
season going forward. Which before this point, I didn't know who it was going to be. I didn't know it was Mark Strong. I didn't know if it was Valia. I wasn't sure, but now I'm pretty sure who we're following here.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the sisterhood with Sister Lila. And this was another thing that reminded me of the Jedi Order. Like, come on, George, Jesus. I mean, I guess they wrote it after Star Wars. No, no.
Well,
That wasn't. That was the prequels. So, but separating the sisters at birth, so they don't remember their family and have no connection to them.
it's effective.
It's effective. Hey, it's what you want to do. And they want to tap into her genetic memory, just like the worm drink in Dune 2 that Jessica and Paul take. Very
Yep.
reminiscent of that, but they have a more efficient way of doing it where they just do a little eye drop. But I was just starting to think, this Lila character is very interesting. Like, she almost seems like the chosen one of the sisterhood, where, her great grandma was the mother superior or whatever they're trying to tell her, but they basically lied to her to get her to do it.
Yeah, that was interesting. So, she's interesting. I could kind of see that. I mean, obviously, everybody is freaked out because she's too young. You typically don't take on the agony at this age, at this point in her training. They're rushing her, but they're saying that she had such a natural ability, and everything with her was top of the charts. Like, okay, this
Mm-hmm.
kid is special. There's something going on with this kid. So they're desperate. Obviously, they're not doing
Right.
it just because she's talented. They're doing it because they're scared. They're pulling something to protect themselves, and so they're forcing this little girl into this situation. But I don't know if she's gonna end up being the chosen one. Do you want to get into that whole trip she took there?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Go
that
ahead.
was wild. Like that was scary. You think when you take that you drink that or it consumes into you and it starts changing everything within your veins like we saw with Jessica in Dune Part 2, but we didn't see her journey. But we see her turning into almost like, it felt like she was in like the realm of the dead spirits, like haunting
Dude,
her,
that was
surrounding
scary.
her, and then they're like kind of joining with her. It was like, oh my god, she's got to be freaking out mentally right now. But it was shot really cool. Definitely it did the trick. But my favorite part of this whole thing, before we get into her ancestors, was the detail, the breakdown where they're talking to her right before she goes into it. I
Yeah.
forgot what that sister's name is, or mother. The one who feels
Tu-
like she's her actual
Tula
mother.
or something.
Tula, I think that's right. Yeah. So she's breaking it down and she's talking about how this whole process started. It was something Mother Raquel did, which is the grandma of Lila here. And she was poisoned and was able to harness her body's chemistry, transmuting the toxins on a cellular level and awakening something deeper, the memories of her women ancestors. And again, like you said, this is what we see Paul and Jessica. But I just love the detailed kind of
Yeah.
explanation to what this is, where it started, how it actually works. That was super interesting, though.
Even like going inside and you see the cells breaking down and the toxins going in there. It was really cool.
Yeah. But what did you think of that reveal where she says, "Oh, is that what they told you to do this?" What did you take from that? Like, what did you think was being revealed there?
I don't know. Well, she says the key to the reckoning is born twice, once in blood, once in spice. A weapon born of war, a path too short. Which sounds like Paul Atreides to me.
I was just gonna say he's born again of spice once he
Right.
takes on the yeah. So,
I think it
but I
but that's so far in the future. But I mean, I guess it will
yeah.
take a while for the prophecy to come true. But yeah, it was weird how she said, oh, they told you your mom's not here. Like, I don't know, you were looking
But
for her. She's not here.
that's what I was confused about. But before that, I would also say Desmond could fit that description. He was just born again through sand. If
That's
the
true.
worm just
That's
took him
true.
down, so I think they're talking about him in that way that they're
And he's a
afraid
weapon
of
born
the
of war.
reckoning. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I think they're describing him there. But so that was weird. She asked for her mom. The person goes, "Oh, is that what they told you to come down here?" But I don't. At first, I took that as saying your mom's not here, and then I thought maybe that is her mom, and she saw the memory of Valia forcing that girl to kill
Oh,
herself, and I think that girl was maybe her mom.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Maybe not.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Or maybe Raquel wasn't her grandmother at all, and her lineage is that girl who Valia made kill herself. But we saw that little flashback there, and she's out for revenge. She speaks through her and she goes, Harkonnen, you guys cut, you ended my life essentially. You took everything from me.
Yeah.
So she's got this vengeance against the Harkonnens after Valia killed her. So I think that was Lila's mom, and that's why they're raised. I don't know. Well, but then she got killed at that age, so how would she have Lila? They were pretty
Right.
young.
I think that's her grandma cuz it's been 30.
No, well,
No,
yeah,
yeah.
her grandma was Raquel, the one who died,
The mother
the
superior?
mother who we saw die. Yeah, that was her grandma. But I don't know who
No, that
Valia
must have been her
killed.
mom. That must have been her mom then.
That got killed.
But she said, "Is that what
I'm
they
just thinking
told
she
you to
was like
get here?"
14. Right. Yeah. No, that's why I was asking you because I was left a little confused. I didn't know exactly how to fully take that. Maybe it was meant to be mysterious and we're going to get a little bit more revealed in the next episode, but I was just trying to put together why did we get the flash of Valia killing that younger girl? And if that was her mom, she looked like she was 14 or 15 when Valia killed her, so I don't I don't think the ages and the timeline lines up for that to be her mom.
And Tulia says her mom died in childbirth.
Yeah, so were they lying to her and Valia actually killed her mom? But again, she seemed too young to have already had a kid. And Valia's like 50 now, and that kid's only like 13. So the timeline doesn't add up there. That can't have been her mom who Valia killed. But safe to say, I'm confused. So I'm not
Oh,
fully
oh.
clear in the situation. You
Okay.
got something for me?
Dorothy. Dorothy is the woman who was killed by Valia. I
Okay.
don't think she's not related to her at all.
Oh, she's just hijacking the
Yeah, she
situation?
just hijacked the situation. So she is not she
Okay.
Lila is related to the mother superior and this woman was just betrayed by Valia, murdered by Valia, and taking over this.
And it's hijacking. Got it.
Okay.
That may. Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing I'm sure about is that Lila's grandma is Mother Superior Raquel, who we saw die. Yeah. But,
okay. We worked it out together.
Look at that. Look at us, huh?
Yeah,
Sorry
but a
to
super
confuse anybody out
creepy
there.
scene that ended in heartbreak too. You think, damn, is she gonna make it? And then by the end, you're like, damn, she's not gonna make it. So, R.I.P. Ring the bells.
Oh. So you think Lila's dead?
Yeah.
Did she die on that table? Maybe I missed that.
Her eyes were open as she was laying there, like dead.
Yeah, I just thought maybe she was in some trance or shock, kind of like coming out of the deep trip. I was thinking she was still alive.
I don't know.
Victor, if you're still out there, let us know what you think. Yeah, well, I think they were also freaked out because she spoke through Lila and was like, I'm coming for you, essentially. Like, Harkonnens, you took everything from me, so they were freaked. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't see the next on either. Did you watch that?
I did. It's a more flashback of the 30 years ago.
Younger.
Yeah. Classic. They
I'm
always
totally
go back
wanting
a
that
little
right
bit,
now. Yeah, can we not? Isn't it only 6 episodes? Let's stay where we are.
Oh,
and move the plot forward.
This is about the sisterhood, bro. All right.
Yeah, no, let's, there's room for Desmond.
Let's take it back to the Emperor's homeworld. So Valia arrives, and I'll say she's not as intimidating as the Reverend Mother in Dune Part 1. The veil over her face, you can't really see what's going on. And also, the Reverend Mother in Dune has an iconic opening scene where, she confronts Paul with the Ganju bar and all that, so it's hard to live up to that. But the first kind of rumor or the first accusation is that the thinking machine, that little AI toy, killed the boy, which I don't know about that. But the Duke Ferdinand, whatever his last name is, says the fleet of fighters is still around the planet and they still support me. So, if you don't get this figured out, some shit might go down. And when the Emperor confronts Desmond, he's trying to say, the Emperor made him do it. Like, hey, you told me to do it. And he's like, nah, you're like, no, I didn't quite say that. I mean, I kind of hinted at it, but you went a little far. And he has him arrested, which I think is smart, to cover up your tracks, to make sure, you don't look like you were a part of it. Have him arrested. Yeah. And Desmond says, the worm gave him some sort of gift, some sort of power. And I forgot her name, the Empress, says, don't rush to execute our friends to please our enemies. We could use him. Which, she is also in his ear. So this Emperor is kind of weak. He is kind of a weak fool in a way to where, other people say something in his ear. He's like, oh yeah, maybe he's just open to ideas. What do you think?
I've kind of taken it as he's a bit passive. Yeah, he doesn't strike me as the most confident, assertive leader. I think he relies, again, like we saw earlier, he relies a lot on his truth sayer, obviously, but yeah, I agree. He doesn't strike me as confident and intimidating. And by the way, the wife, speaking of The Witcher, we already brought it up once. She was, I'm pretty sure she was the queen of, what was it, Sintra?
Oh.
Queen, I don't remember what her name was, but I'm pretty positive that was the Queen of Sintra, the mom of Homegirl. It's been a while since I've watched The Witcher. Yeah, there you go.
Ciri's mom, yeah.
Yeah, so that I'm pretty positive that's her.
I never finished I watched half of that final Witcher season with Henry Cavill. I never finished it. It wasn't as good.
I haven't started it yet either, but I might. I don't know. Real quick, Victor in the chat says he thinks that Lila might be alive and could start a revolution going forward. Actually, so thinks she's going to be a part of that revolution we heard Atreides talking about. So yeah, I think she's still alive, but we'll see. We'll see. Not to backtrack too far.
She's got to get the tats on her face, right? If she comes back.
Yeah, I guess so. You got to get those dope
the blue eyes.
Jessica tats. Yeah.
And we go back to Desmond in his floating prison cell, which seems
that's brutal.
Brutal.
What the hell?
I don't know if it's comfortable because you're kind of just free floating, but also at the same time you're just
it's true. There's no gravity. You're just
hanging
But
out.
you can't move, you can't walk around, you can't do. You're just staring. Oh my god, it seemed like torture to me. But
Right. And, he says, I have nothing to hide. And he just admits to it. Like, yeah, I killed him. Like, you wanted me to, so I did it. And this
yeah,
is when Val- uh, Valia's in there now, right? This is when she comes to get him. Yeah, I think so.
yeah, yeah. She wants to see him.
And he sees the corruption in them. So this is like a interesting juxtaposition where he is doing bad things, but so are the sisterhood at the same time. Like they're both trying to, gain their own power in these secret ways.
Yeah,
And the emperor doesn't want to make a big fuss about it. Like, he Desmond openly admits to murder, and Valia's like, okay, like shut and close case. Let's wrap this up. And he's like, no, let's not make a big fuss about it. Like, we don't need to stir things up around here. It's interesting.
yeah.
And Empress Natalia, that's her name, Empress Natalia,
Okay.
visits him later. Says, do you think you're a prophet? And he's like, there's things I can do, terrible things. I think you should use it against the Duke and his fleet. And he's like, let me show you what I can do to the people that I'm loyal to. And it's like, damn, bro. Like, okay, he's ready to go.
Yeah. He's full on a ride or die. That I mean, and she saw it again. I don't think the Emperor was gonna see it. She's the one who was like, "Hold on,
Right.
let's use this tool we've got going for us here." Like
We need it.
yeah, yeah,
And Duke Ferdinand comes back to confront the Emperor. He calls him the weak fool. You think you can silence me? Yeah, I'm gonna tear you from the throne and feed you to the wolves. Like,
bro,
whoa, bro, really overstepping your
wild.
boundaries. And Desmond comes in to take care of business because he's not to be messed with, and basically is about to kill him. To the Emperor says, "All right, you leave. Don't tell anyone this happened, and I'll, let that threat go. Get the fuck off my planet."
Yeah, that was pretty intense. I mean, and now he's got to know. Okay, that's the guy who killed my son too, because I have the same burns on my skin now that my son's dead body had on it. So he has to know that's him.
Yeah, I
Which
imagine
I don't know how that's gonna go away.
Imagine he returns sometime in this season.
I would have to think so.
Yeah, there's gonna be chaos because Valia, obviously, we'll talk about that right now. That she meets with Desmond, and she says, "You think you can replace me?" And he's like, "The Emperor doesn't need you anymore. He has me. Like I can be in that spot now and protect him even more than you can."
Dude.
So it's like there's a lot of stuff. I mean, they set up a lot in these first two episodes where everything going on in the sisterhood, where people are for and against what they're trying to do. Valia's plans are not going well at all in both places. She just got kicked out, basically. There's this Atreides rebellion going on behind the scenes with the other lower houses. The princess has no one to marry now. Like, who's the next, emperor?
Right. And it's set to be a Bene Gesserit. I mean, there are so many different schemes and plans in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Schemes and plots, the same thing. Very Games of Thrones-esque in a lot of ways like that. But I really like this point with this conversation where she tries to use the voice on Desmond.
Yeah.
And it starts to work at first, and I thought maybe he was playing along with it to kind of like make her think until that last moment. So I don't know if he overcame it or if he wasn't really being tricked by it the whole time. It was just messing with her. But you can see the fear just flush, because you have to imagine, if you've had that power your entire life, like no matter what type of pickle I get myself in, I can talk my way out of it and control the people around. And the first time you realize you don't have that option in any situation, she looked terrified. And he goes, I always wondered what your greatest fear was, and now I've seen it. It's not that no one will hear you, it's that they'll hear you and no one will care.
Damn.
And you could tell it was just a gut punch to her. But this was a really, really solid scene to go out on.
I think you're really right about that theory, because even in Dune Part 1 and 2, Paul uses the voice on Jessica, and then Paul uses the voice on the Reverend Mother.
Yeah.
Like, so like Desmond is on this other level where he is above these, the voice in these Bene Gesserit tricks. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
And Victor in the chat again, thanks for staying with us and,
Oh
and
yeah.
participating the whole time, sir. You're a champ. He says, could he be a cyborg? Talking about Desmond. Valia's vision had two blue eyes. The AI's light was blue. The character was blue too. The prophecy of the person who was born twice, are they misleading us? So I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting thought. There's a lot of, I think there's going to be a ton of theories flood. I haven't been on social media since it dropped, so I don't know if there's a lot of theories going out right now, but I would have to imagine. Or people are going to refer back to the books and maybe that's already been revealed in the books. I don't know what the pulse is on it right now.
I don't know if Desmond's in that book.
Okay. I hope not. I hope that a lot of this is original. I was kind of bummed to hear you say that it was kind of loosely based off of one of Frank Herbert's son's works. But I think they'll probably play fast and loose with it and just use it as a bit of a template, maybe. But yeah, I'm really excited to see who this is going to be. And oh no, what's his last name? Travis Bimmel. Fimmel. Travis Fimmel. He was Ragnar in Vikings.
Okay.
He was just in something else too, actually. That he's always pretty solid in it. So
Yeah.
and I'm liking his character a lot in this so far. Really curious to see where we're going with him.
Yeah, it's a really good cast and not a lot of noticeable characters besides Mark Strong, or actors and actresses.
Yeah, we've seen the princess somewhere before, right? She looks very familiar.
Yeah.
Her name's Nev. Was it Princess
Nez.
Nez? Okay, I know she's got to be from something because she just looks so familiar there. Anyways, I'm gonna look that up, and I will let you know. Not to have so much dead air here, Victor. I guess if you got the answer, go ahead and shoot it out there.
I don't notice anything she's been in.
No? Oh, you got it already pulled up?
Tides, Park Road, The Birdcatcher. Nothing.
Yeah, it's not ringing a bell for me at all either. I swear, she just looks so familiar.
She's Mary Magdalene.
In The Chosen?
No, in the movie Mary Magdalene.
Oh.
Nightfall?
No, she's not. She's Martha and Mary Magdalene, actually. She's not even married. Okay, well, no, 1864. Oh, no. I've seen 1883 and I think 1851, but not 1864. Haven't seen that one.
Dude, Nightfall. I watched that. That random history show with Mark Hamill and Tom Cullen.
Oh, I briefly saw something about that, but
They're
I
like
never.
the
It was
temple.
like on a history channel.
Yeah, the temple.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called.
Well, anyway, all to say, I guess I don't know her from anywhere, but she looks familiar.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We'll probably be, I say we cover every 2 episodes. We'll be back for episodes 3 and 4. What do you say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens in episode 3, but I think it's a good plan the way it's rolling out right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time here on Why So Sidious, a nerd podcast.
Nice.
Dude, Victor's a goat.
Right? Who is this guy?
Yeah, right? He's well smart.
Because I don't know how I ended up here, but it's good to see people talking about Dune.
And then just watches the entire episode.
And then just an hour. Which I think because it's a little earlier too. Instead of starting at 8, we start a little earlier. So on East Coast time too, it maybe shows up a little more. And Dune maybe is trending right now. But we had way more activity in that